Hello and welcome to episode 75 of the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Howard Kravitz. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. We have a fantastic show planned as we're going to cover the graded stakes and the late pick five at Arlington Park for Arlington Million Day on Saturday. Thanks for joining the show tonight. Please make sure you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button right there on the bottom right hand side of the screen. And after you do that, hit the notification bell so that you are aware when new content arises on the show. You can also, of course, reach me on Twitter. And this is very important for Saturday because on Twitter, I'm going to be very active. I will be at Arlington Park to enjoy the races as a fan and cover for this podcast. So I'll be tweeting out many pictures, videos, etc. Please follow me. If you do not follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter. You can see there on the name tag at H Kravitz. You can see the spelling. You can also reach me, of course, through email, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. The scroll's on the bottom of the screen. Just to let you folks know, Davy Lane, if you are hearing this, we have two guests tonight. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty. So Davy Lane, if you hear this, or if anyone can get in touch with Davy Lane, I did send him an email and also a DM on Twitter, but I had to change a link for Davy Lane to come on the show. I apologize for the technical difficulty. So Davy, if you're hearing this right now, or if anyone can get in touch with Davy, please tell him to check his email because his email that I sent has the link that will allow Davy to become a guest on the show. We also have another fantastic handicapper who is all ready to go in the green room backstage. Kyle Roscoe. We'll be bringing him on shortly, and hopefully Davy will see his email and get the message, or is listening to this, and we'll get Davy on as well. Before we get into the handicapping for Saturday, which is going to be an unbelievable sequence, few quick reminders. Race Day blog. It's fantastic. It's inexpensive. It's profitable. The list is growing every day. We have been crushing it lately on the Race Day blog. There's the information below. There's also going to be information below in the description. If you do not already belong to the Race Day blog, highly recommend you do that. I will send out details of my ABC sequence and picks for Arlington Park Saturday, along with some picks at Saratoga as well, and other spot plays and price plays throughout the country. Highly recommend you check out the Race Day blog. Also, on inthemoneypodcast.com, as you folks know, or most of you already know, I am an employee of In the Money Podcast. You can check out my free analysis of Canterbury Park Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays on inthemoneypodcast.com. And then this week, of course, right now, we have our Arlington Million Day preview. We'll talk about the grade stakes and the late pick five. And then Saturday, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I will do my pick five at the spa segment where we will cover the late pick five at Saratoga for Sunday. So we have a lot going on the show. Also, and most of you do not know this, including Kyle, who's waiting in the background, it looks like, no promises, but it looks like next weekend is the Pacific Classic and a huge day at Del Mar, and we are hoping, no promises, but it's looking like Michelle Yu will be back on the show to cover the pick five, etc. for the Pacific Classic. I don't know the day yet. It might not be on Thursday. We might have to move it up to Wednesday, but that's in the works. Also in the works, the following week, which will be Travers weekend, I'm looking to get either one of two people. Again, no guarantees. Nick Tamaro, fantastic handicapper for NYRA, contest player, winner, etc. He's been on the show before. We are hoping to get Nick Tamaro on the show 2 weeks from now for the Travers, and or soon after that, Matt Bernier, either for Travers Day or for the next week for the Labor Day weekend Pennsylvania Derby and those great races at Parks. Matt has told me he is going to reciprocate, and I'm going to have him on my show, as I had the pleasure of being on his show last week. So hopefully we'll have Michelle Yu, Nick Tamero, and Matt Bernier coming back on these airwaves very soon. So we're still waiting for um, Davy Lane, but we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a number of people already on the show watching. Before I bring on one of my guests, Kyle Roscoe, um, if you hit at Saratoga today, wow, congratulations, because the horse racing god said, Howard, I gave you the 5 out of 6 and some nice payouts the day before. Not today, my friend. How someone hit the pick 5 to me is absolutely unbelievable. The pick 6 did carry over at Saratoga. There's a carryover tomorrow of $130,000 in the pick 6. Because I'm doing a video tonight for Arlington, I will not be doing a video for the pick 6 tomorrow at Saratoga. But if you're playing the races tomorrow at Saratoga, good luck with that. But we need to focus on Arlington Park. So let's talk about Saturday, and I'll bring in my guest. So a lot of mixed emotions, and we're going to get the emotions from our first guest coming on. It very much appears that this Saturday will be the very last Arlington Million at Arlington Park in Arlington Heights, Illinois. It'll be the 38th running. Technically, they've had 37 runnings in the Million. This race is actually called the Mr. D Stakes in honor of Richard Duchossois, who the former majority owner. He's turning 100 years old this year. It's still a fantastic race, and it's also a great sequence as well. Please make sure on the right side of the screen, if you're watching, please make sure you comment. We'd love to have a lot of questions and comments. And if you're watching a replay of this, please make sure you do so below the video player. But right now, let's go ahead and bring on one of our guests. He works at Arlington Park. He's a fantastic young handicapper. I like to bring on all different sorts of ages on the show. Like to bring on that younger crowd. I'd like to bring on from near Arlington Heights, Illinois, the one and only Kyle Roscoe. Kyle, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Howard. How are you?
Kyle, before we go ahead and get started, for people that did not see Kyle on our show, I believe it was in June with Pete Visco and unfortunately Jack Fain, who passed away, which is really sad. But Kyle, for those of you, by the way, Kyle, I don't know if you can see this, but I can. We have our second guest has gotten the message. And we can't wait any longer. Nope. Let's bring both of you on the same time, right, Kyle? We got to bring it on from the UK. And I apologize, the one and only Davy Lane got the message. Davy, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm good, Howard. How are you? Listen, I'm using a mobile phone, not my laptop. So I don't know if you can see me the same way, or is it okay?
We can see you great. We can hear you great. I want to first greatly apologize. The technical difficulty was mainly on my end, Davey. I'm glad that you saw your email, got the message. So no harm done. No problems whatsoever. The inquiry sign went up. No one was taken down. It's all good. And we're happy to have you on the show. Davey, before I let you talk a little about yourself, I was just talking to Kyle. By the way, Kyle, meet Davey from
nice
the UK.
Nice to meet you as well.
Kyle, very quickly, tell people your background a little bit, specific to Arlington, especially.
So I've been going to Arlington ever since, God, I was 1 year old. They used to have family days out in the park where they would, have petting zoos and pony rides and all that stuff to try and get the whole family in. I was one of those kids back in the day. My parents, mainly my dad, got me into horse racing around 10 years old. Again, still going to Arlington Park every summer, and then starting in 2017, I've been there almost every single day since the summer, since all those days in the meet. And then I started working at Arlington in 2019 with what's called the Arlington University, which is where it's kind of like a help desk where people will come up and they will ask, these questions about how to read the book, what types of bets they can make, or, stuff like that. So it's definitely been the most rewarding experience I've ever had in my entire life. But Arlington, as I'm sure to you, Howard, as well, holds a great place in my heart.
Yeah, it sure does. And I had the opportunity to meet Kyle for the first time, really just a few months ago, and since then, it's everything's been fantastic. Davey, for those of viewers, and I know you have a huge following who are not familiar with you, I got to formally, and we have not had the chance to actually face to face, so to speak. I got to tip my cap for Ray Schoon.
Okay.
Ray Schoon at Royal Ascot. Please tell the viewers, Davey, a little about yourself, and just very quickly about the pick of the year on this podcast, Ray Schoon at Royal Ascot.
Well, I won't repeat what I introduced myself as earlier. I'll just go quick. I'll just jump on what Kyle was talking about. My father introduced me to racing. His first job was a bookies runner in Cork Island when gambling was illegal, and so that's and he took me to the racetrack when I was a kid, but you know what, I kept away from it for about a couple of decades, because that was his terrain, and subsequently I think I got tired of a lot of other professional sports, and I said to myself, this is quite interesting. It's like people play Sudoku and they play chess, and and after the end of it, it's over. But with the racing, it's on the next day, and you can cash, etc., etc. So I've since built up my interest in the game, and Rashun, well, that was something. Actually, one of the things I wanted to say about Rashun, which is another angle. I mean, there are 150 plus variables to figure out a horse race, but one of the things I did was I checked the Twitter account of the owner, and generally there are people talking about a particular horse or what he's doing, or he's boasting, or he's mentioning that he's got horses running, and counterintuitively he never said a thing, And that to me triggered something. I'm saying there's something going on here, So like in horse racing, people, you have to think counterintuitively, and that was an example. That's one of the little check marks I made when I the other one was, of course, the horse always ran a winning race on firm ground once a year, for 4 years in a row. So, that was a big one. But you have to come up with more than just one check. You have to make several checks, and you're not a master computer. You can't make 150 variables and check them all up, but you've got to get several of them lined up.
Well, I've talked about, Davey, on this show that when people zig, I like to zag. I like to try to go a different direction. Perfect example, very quickly, as we get into the pick 5. There was a big pick 6 carryover yesterday at Saratoga, Davey, and there was a horse that I liked that I talked about in the show that looked horrible on paper, but he was going from turf to dirt. He had a good work, blah, blah, blah. Went off at 12-1 and won, beating 2 very heavy favorites and probably knocking about 75% of the people immediately out of the pick 6. The horse was a Naco. If you listen to the podcast, you know what I'm referring to. So I agree. Sometimes you just have to, go in a different direction. And Davey, you were right on top with that. We have some people join the show very quickly. I always put Richards ready to cash a big pick 5. We have Jay, who says it's easy, just take his picks and then toss them. So Jay, I'm assuming you're referring to today. If it was about today, Jay, Saratoga was extremely difficult. My good friend Tom Espinoza from California is here. Tom likes Cadillac, who I liked also, by the way, Davey. We're going off the beaten path a little bit. I loved him last weekend. He was awful, absolutely awful. I was really shocked. And Tom wants to know, I'll go ahead because we have so much respect for you, Davey, and you're sort of our European expert. Very quickly, any opinion? I don't know if you saw the race from Cadillac last week. Any opinion of what you think of him the rest of his 3-year-old year?
It was a mystery to me, and I played him also, and I lost, and I haven't recovered.
What odds did you get out there? What odds did you get out there on him on the day?
I had 6-1.
Wow. I think he went off at 7-2 here at post time.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't believe it. So I took it. Listen, I have 2 points to make about Arlington very, very quickly, and I'll make them just because I prepared just to jump into the track and the history.
Yeah.
One of them is that it's interesting about the nature of the game of horse racing. The first £1 million soccer transfer was in about 1979. A guy called Trevor Francis, roughly when the first Arlington Million was 1981.
Yes.
Now, the Arlington Million is still a big race as of last year. Let's say a million. It's not the top 2 race, top 5 race, but it's a top 20, top 30 race. In terms of prize money. And now the football top transfer is 200 million. So, and many of them are 150 million and so on. So you can see where racing has just basically just gone flatlined compared to other professional sports. So I just wanted to get that across. And one of the things about the Arlington Million was, as a kid, I didn't know about the storied races like the Travers and all the rest of it, but I knew about the Arlington Million.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what racing needs to do is get a bit of pizzazz back. And I think the Arlington Million brought that pizzazz to the game. And I think that was the model. And I think they've lost it, or they've let the Asians and the Arabs take over. And the second thing was to talk about what I call the PNs. A lot of Americans talk about the PPs, the PPs, the PPs. They're always talking about the PPs. Well, I have in my hands here, as you can see, these are what I would call the PNs.
Yes.
The past nominations.
Nominations.
So when Arlington came out with, the nominations in May for these big races, they were printed out, and I've gone through them with a fine-tooth comb. There are 3 horses that were in the Arlington Million nominated that are running tomorrow. There are several in the last few days that have been winning or coming very close to winning. A horse called Technique ran at Salisbury yesterday, was just beaten by a nose. There was a horse called Zorro over in Delmar last week that ran. So what I'm saying, in other words, I project a lot of my summer. I mean, I study the Arlington past denominations almost like a Talmudic scholar, because they project to me. They project to me what's going on in France and Ireland and the UK, because they give me an indication of what connections are thinking back in May about their horses throughout the summer. And I can pop into 3 or 4 jurisdictions and get a note. So I'll miss the Arlington Million because it was a unique way for me to just get a handle on people's intentions. So that's another reason.
There's great Euros, Perot, Ptolomeo, of course, John Henry. Yeah. Astropod, Teleprompter was running down, and then some American horses. I believe my first million was 2000 in person. I should say in person. Chester House, a really nice horse for Bobby Frankel and Juddmonte and Jerry Bailey. And there have been so many other great horses since. And some horses, of course, coming from overseas. Powers Court, Suleimani, domestic winners, Gio Ponte, Little Mike. The great story of the local hero, the Pizza Man in 2015, who, by the way, for you folks know, I was just on I just did a podcast, by the way, for In the Money with Nicole Newless, who is fantastic. So if you happen to be an In the Money Plus subscriber, check out my 35-minute show with Nicole Newless on the Pick 5 sequence they're about to cover. But I did not, gentlemen, I was alive to a big Pick 5 that day, had 5 or 6 horses, did not have the Pizza Man. I just didn't think he classed up. He went by and won. I mean, it was. I had a lot of mixed feelings because I lost Pick 5, but it was great to have the local winner.
Everyone's screaming around you.
Win that race. I'll tell you, I couldn't believe the horse won. But anyway, Chad Brown has had a stranglehold on this race the last 3 years with Beach Patrol, Robert Bruce, and then Bricks and Mortar. And of course, last year they did not run. So, gentlemen, let's go ahead and jump into this Pick 5 sequence. And as I just mentioned, I did speak with someone who has been on track in the mornings all week and has some intel that you guys might not know that, frankly, I also did not know, with some horses that have been cross-entered in different races that are going to one instead of the other. Okay. So we'll get into that as we go along. For those of you watching, I do have our 3 picks. These are our top 3 choices in each race, and gentlemen, you're going to see some similarities and some differences. I also just want to special thanks to Davy. Of course, he's in the UK. It is 1:40. It is very late there. So Davy, thanks for staying up. I got up nice and early for him last time. So that's what horse people do, right? You do favors for each other. So just special shout out to Davy for staying up this late. I really do appreciate that, Davy. Let me get the PPs up here, gentlemen. Give me 1 second here, and so we can get this up on the screen. All righty. So if you hear Davy's voice a little scraggly, you'll know why, because it's late there. So gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and start with race 6. Like I said, it's an excellent sequence. We're going to start off with the pick 5. There are picks. You see them on the screen. H is Howard, D is Davy, and of course K is Kyle. I think Kyle must have got into my brain because we've got the top 2 choices there. I don't know if that's good or bad. We will find out. David, I'm going to let you go ahead first as I talk about the conditions of the first leg of the pick 5. It's race 6. It starts at approximately 5:12 Eastern Standard Time. It is a one of 4 graded stakes or group stakes. It's a grade 3 pucker up. They're going 1.125 miles on the turf for restricted 3-year-old fillies. And Davey, there are a bunch of European horses that are running or at least have run at in Europe before. Not as many as normal on Saturday, I think, because of the lower purses. But you're going with the 6. She's a Mystery, 7-2 morning line on our past performances.
Right. I think what triggered that for me was a couple of things. Morales, the jockey, he's coming into town for one ride, and he has books of rides right across the Midwest.
Yes. Up. Up, Davey, your sound, I don't hear you.
Up, there you go.
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Now you're back. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You're talking about Morales has only one book. Well, only one mount. Davey, you're cutting in and out. Sorry. All right. Davey, we can see you, but up. There you go, Davey. Sorry, you were just freezing up there a little bit.
Am I back?
Yes, you're back. Go ahead.
Okay. A big clue
don't worry about the camera. As long as we can hear you, it's good. People understand you're on your phone. No problem.
Right. So a big clue for me was Morales, the jockey. He has a books of rides right across the Midwest, either side of this, and he's coming into town for one ride. And in his past history, maybe a decade ago, he used to earn some good money, and he's on leaner times right now. So I thought that was interesting. I'm particularly impressed with the Indiana run, his Indiana win recently, and that fell into first place for me because I wasn't so impressed really with the Chad Brown horse that ran in these provincial tracks in France. I mean, these aren't big time tracks in France that this horse was running in, and that's really why She's a Mystery came in, as the first choice for me.
And you've got the 4 Flown in second. Would you like to briefly talk about Flown, the 4 horse?
Yeah. The 4 horse. I trust Adam Besikta on the turf, and again that slipped into me because my instinct is to go against Pratt and Sires in this race because I'm not particularly impressed by their horses. So that was just a process of elimination. Subsequent to that.
This is a pretty wide open race. As I go to Kyle for his selections, you can see on the screen. Kyle, before I talk about your opinions of this race, just want to mention to everyone there are some great jockeys coming into town as usual. You got Luis Saez, Flavian Pratt, also previously mentioned by Davy. Julian Leperoux is coming in, and of course you have Ryan Moore coming in as well from Europe. So we have some fantastic riders that are going to be here. Kyle, you and I have the same 2 horses. You like the 1 Oyster Box 72 morning line for Graham Motion and the aforementioned Luis Saez.
So this horse, the one thing that I really noticed is this distance is definitely not going to be a problem for this horse. That wet turf race at Churchill earning an 82 buyer in the grade 3. For me, it's obviously there's a bunch of shippers in and stuff like that, but these Churchill grade 3s will always hold a higher regard than races like this for me. But he gets Lasix again. And, I mean, like I said, there's not too much pace in this race from what I saw. With She's a Mystery going out for the lead in spritz and maybe Serene sitting right behind them. But Oyster Box, the thing that put me on top of him was that he's shown that he can come from farther back, and he's shown that he can come from near the mid-pack as well. So I think if he sits that mid-pack trip, running and then trying to improve off that 82 buyer, I think he's got a good shot.
Kyle, just very quickly, the sound is really good. It's almost a little too good. I don't know if you could turn down your mic just a little bit if you have control, or just maybe move it a little bit further away from you. It's just a little bit tinny. It's a little bit loud. I'll let you also talk about the second choice, a horse that Davy does not like. This is the great thing about handicapping. Everyone has different opinions. Talk a little bit about the three, the Chad Brown, who you like in second.
So, like Davey said, it didn't exactly like get me excited about this horse. This horse hadn't had again running back his first race in America at Monmouth was raced a 72 Buyer. He lost by 4.5 to a horse that's Poor Kano, who has not raced since that Monmouth race. So I really didn't have anything to go off at. But again, this is Chad Brown Day. So for Arlington, as it has been in most recent years, like
Sure
you
has.
touched on earlier, Flavian Pratt gets aboard, and like I said, and then he bobbled at the break in his last start. It wasn't a heavy bobble. I did watch the replay, but again, come bobbling at the break and still coming back to place is enough for me with Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt to throw him in second.
Yeah, and this is an 8-horse field. I'm going to quickly talk about uh, the 1 and 3, in my opinion. Uh, Chris Landeros is a decent rider. I don't want to be too harsh. That was not a good ride from him, in my opinion, in the regret last time for Oyster Box. They went 49 and almost 49 and 3 to the half, and she was in last place. He had her, this filly, in last. I think Landeros had her too far back. The other thing the reason I like so I like Oyster Box with the jockey change, but I think she's faced very good horses. Gam's Mission, Spanish Love Affair, Fluffy Socks, Domain Expertise, and the Jouster, and just Jouster. Any of those horses I think would be almost favored in this race. So maybe you can't tell because she's been in grade threes, but I really think that Oyster Box has faced the best company of anyone in here. I want to talk about the three, and then Davey, I want to ask you a question about the three also. Shantasara. Now, what I don't like about this horse, 4-1 morning line, is all three of us, I'm sure, will agree this horse is going to be an underlay. This horse can be overbet.
Yeah.
Because of
Right.
the connections. Chad Brown, Flavian Pratt, Shantasara. I do want to show the replay. As Kyle correctly mentioned, she only got a 72 last time, but that does not tell the story. There are two places in this race that I'd like to point in as we watch the replay. First of all, the start. Typically, she's the 3. Now, typically, Euros break slow. She did, and she got pinched and steadied. You're going to see here in just a minute. She breaks a step slow. This was a very slow pace. She is rank, as you're going to see. On the turn here, she gets pinched right there. Now look at how much she's pulling here in the Madacat stables. Very rank. Look, and just a complete stranglehold on this horse as they were going slow. All right. Now after that, she got a good trip, but I do want to watch the end of the race in the gallop out because it's worth watching. Again, she's on the inside, getting a perfectly fine trip there in 5th. So I'm going to move it ahead. Watch the gallop out. She's right here. You're thinking, okay, Howard, why do you like this horse? She's doing no running. I somewhat agree with that. However, this was her first start in the United States, and just keep watching, folks, because I could not believe this. So she loses there's the wire. She loses by a good 5 lengths. I was ready to move on with my handicapping. Look what happens here. And you can say this means nothing or means a lot. I'll leave it up to you. This is way past the wire, right? You're saying, okay, what's the big deal? Here comes a freight train. What? Really? Davey, I'm big on gallop outs. Some people make fun of me, some people don't. Not every gallop out is the same, but to me, Davey and Kyle, that is somewhat telling. I just think she was very goofy in her first start in the United States. Am I right or wrong? Your opinion, Davey? Does the gallop out matter? And also, if you could touch a little bit on the breeding. I'm a little bit familiar with Kodiak and Dalakani, but not the sire and dam. Can you talk a little about the breeding of the three as well?
Okay. Well, the thing about the gallop out is that you often don't get the camera people cooperating and giving you a gallop out. It's very difficult sometimes.
Correct.
And it's frustrating because I'm a big fan of the gallop out too. So in that respect, it's hard to just judge it on one gallop out.
Sure.
I'm judging the horse on its past form and where it came from,
Sure.
and this horse was running in Marseille, in between Christmas and New Year's, on a synthetic track.
Yeah.
You can be a three-legged horse and win some of those races, so.
Well, she definitely has some more form to find. I think that's very fair to say. But I do like also Davy. Davy, I'm trying to sell you on this horse a little bit. I do like the fact that she, her 2 wins were at 1 mile and 3/16 and 1 mile and a quarter, and this is 1 mile and 1/8. I think she's going to be better. I'm not saying to go to the windows and bet your mortgage on this horse. I just think the 3 is interesting. Kyle, before we move on, any opinions on what you saw on the Gallop out or just the replay in general?
No, I agree 100%. I also agree 100% with Davey is sometimes you don't get that Gallop out video that sometimes gets provided, which I agree. A Gallop out, you said that Gallop outs are treated differently. By all means, that's correct. And I 100% agree that is very telling that for me that she can get the distance and that, like you said, her 2 wins are at 1 mile and a quarter and 1 mile and 3/16. So I think adding a little bit of distance to that 1 mile and 16th race can definitely make a big difference.
I just want to mention one of the horses very quickly. I know we're going quite a long time with this, but this race is pretty wide open. The 8 Serene, I think, is interesting. I'm using her. I'm not going to talk about my ABC selections tonight in general. You can find those on my race day blog. But gentlemen, I thought the 8 Serene is interesting. $800,000 purchase. Ran in a tough turf race last year in her maiden. Broke her maiden very well last time, and this is a very ambitious placing for Owen Hardy in this race for a local rider, Rocco Bowen, who is very capable. She did not beat much at all in that maiden race, but I just want to mention Serene as a possible long shot here to start the first leg of the pick 5 sequence. David, did you want to mention something before we moved on?
Well, just about the breeding, Dalacani, won a lot of the Group 1 races, if memory serves right, on some of the heavy and soft and good to, Okay. So I'm not sure what the going is going to be in Arlington on Saturday. So.
Well, actually, let's talk about that very briefly as I move on to the next race. So, actually, I'm going to go ahead and put us full screen here just 1 second, if I may. So for those of you that are not obviously live in the Chicago area or don't know the weather, it's been very hot and tropical and actually quite stormy here this week. Davey, obviously Kyle's aware of this. We've had some pop-up strong thunderstorms in the last few days. However, tomorrow and Saturday, it's going to cool off and be absolutely gorgeous in the low 80s. So I don't know what that'd be Celsius. What that'd be about? It's 80 Fahrenheit's around what 23, 25ish Celsius. Davey, I'm not somewhere around there. Am I? Pretty close,
So
right?
it's gonna dry up, isn't it? So
it's not going to be firm, Davey. It's definitely not going to be firm, but I also don't think it's going to be that wet. I think it'll be probably listed as good. Kyle, would you agree with that? Just best guess.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and talk about race 7. There's our picks for race 7. A lot of similarities, as you can see, because frankly, this looks like it could be a 2-horse race. Race 7. It is one of the best races of the year for older fillies and mares. They're on the turf, of course, 1 mile and 3/16. It's the Grade 1, Beverly D, $400,000. Kyle, we'll let you go first this time. There are 2 horses that look like, on paper, that are going to be in an absolute slugfest. The number 2, Mean Mary, 9-5 morning line favorite, and the number 4 for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore, Santa Barbara. We are all going. It's hard to say the Euro because she's European based. She did run in the United States last time, but we are all going with the Aidan O'Brien train, Santa Barbara. Kyle, I'll let you talk first about your selection.
Okay. And and I talked with you about this too. That last race for Santa Barbara, that was one of the roughest trips down the stretch that I've seen for a horse like that. Especially she went off at 1-1, which you even said was an overlay on her part. She should have been 2-5, 3-5, or which I guess that might be an underlay, but yeah, if you saw the replay,
she's the 5 horse right there in between horses in those dark blue silks. Go ahead.
Yep. And like you said, I know Euros tend to like to be covered up a lot, but down the stretch, she's going to get blocked halfway down the stretch, and she's going to find a hole probably just past the last furlong, and she's going to take it and fly through it to gain 3 lengths on the field in about, just over a 16th of a mile. So this is for me, the only thing that scares me about this is with Mean Mary is the pace scenario. If she gets loose, I mean, we all know what Mean Mary can do, but you see she's finally able to get through splitting horses down this, just past the 8th pole there. And then she's just going to absolutely explode down the stretch to win by a half. So
yeah, right here, this is silly. I mean, only Euros really can do this. And by the way, the horse that she beat there, the number 1 Cone Lima, came back. Davy, I'm assuming you're aware of this. Came back and won the Saratoga Oaks last weekend, wire to wire for Flavian Pratt. Davy, you're very familiar with this horse, obviously, with European based. Super talented. I would assume, Davey, that Aidan O'Brien could have sent many other horses over here, fillies, and he chooses to send over a 3-year-old filly. So I think that's also very telling. Your thoughts on Santa Barbara?
Yeah. He's. I mean, she is. This. He has Snowfall for the Arc. I think is his big filly.
Okay.
And this is really just a chance to see if Santa Barbara can actually go against the older horses and maybe perhaps run in the Arc, shotgun for Snowfall, maybe. That's how I would see it. I would see it as giving it experience. There's an interesting angle too. I mean, they often have prepped in Chicago for races in Australia, but because of the new medical guidelines they've laid in Racing Victoria, they're not sending any horses to the Melbourne Spring this year. So where are they going to go? So I mean, obviously, they're going to go in Chicago, but after that, where? Maybe Japan or Hong Kong. But I mean, so you have to wonder what they're up to. And maybe they're just vacuuming the prize money while they can. Because the prize money is pretty poor in Britain. I mean, for a horse that isn't going to win the Juddmonte and isn't perhaps going to win the Arc, this is easy money, perhaps.
Well, I'm not sure about the easy money, Davey, because there's a horse here who, pun intended, has a bit of a mean streak in her. Mean Mary, Davey, who we all have second, could easily wire this field and is very dangerous also.
Yeah, I agree, but I think we've all chosen Santa Barbara for a reason, because we've been impressed by what she can do in the when giving her head of steam up. So I would see her reeling in Mean Mary pretty readily, actually.
Wow. Okay.
Gets £6 as well, so I'm comfortable with that.
I did not mention that on my podcast on In the Money, and I should have. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Davey. I'm not a big weight guy, but in this, when there's what I believe is a relatively small difference between the two, I think 6 pounds can make a huge difference. Interestingly enough to me, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Kyle, before we move on to the next race. There are 2 horses that I personally don't think can win, but are going to have a huge effect on the race. The number 5, Naval Laughter, who I laughed, frankly, when I saw a 92 morning line, because I think this horse should be 15-1 personally. And the 7, Oso Terrible, who's 30-1. Why do I mention both these horses? These are the only horses that could put any pace pressure on Mean Mary, and I see that Oso Terrible has blinkers on, Kyle. And going back to Roman as the jockey, who is generally a pretty aggressive rider. So the question I have for you, Kyle, is do you think Naval Laughter or Oso Terrible will be sent and put any pressure at all on Mean Mary, or do you think they're just going to try to run for second and third place and just let Mean Mary go?
For me, I don't think Chris Davis will send the 5. I was there he was in the prep race, which is the Modesty, which was on Million Preview Day, July 17th. And she sat back probably about, like it says, 2.5, 3 lengths almost off, and exploded down the stretch to win, by only a half. But she ended up beating 2 horses in this race, which is Joy Epifora and Bramble Queen. But so I don't think Chris Davis will tell Sophie to send Naval Laughter. I think she'll try to sit in the middle, but I think Bradley Ross is going to have to send Oso Terrible to have realistically any sort of chance in this race, and that's the way I see it. So
Yeah.
I believe Oso Terrible will go out for the lead, but I think Chris Davis might hold back on Naval Laughter.
By the way, according to Nicole Newlist, who is the wonderful guest I had on my show on In the Money Plus podcast, she's been trackside Davy all this week. By the way, for the morning gal, she covers Chicago racing. Said Bramble Queen is going to be a scratch. Not that we think she can win the race, but just let everyone know the one looks like will be scratched out of that race. One other horse I want to talk about. I know that you guys have different horses in third, but I do want to mention the horse that should take some money. And a horse, Davy, that I'll be very honest, I loved in the Diana last time, the grade
Right.
one at Saratoga. I thought Lamista ran a big race two back against Harvey's
Right.
Little Goyle. It was a very nice older mare, 4-year-old mare out here in the States. But frankly, ran awful in the Diana. I have no idea what happened. I loved Lamista that day. But Chad Brown, Davy, is still giving this horse and the jockey, etc., confidence in sending her. Talk a little about the Euro form from Lamista, and I noticed you don't have Lamista anywhere, so I'm assuming you don't really like this Chad Brown either.
Well, I subsequently realized that it's getting Lasix for the first time. So
correct.
And like Santa Barbara, so that might cook the horse up a bit. So I was just watching its previous race, and I was just very disappointed. I was awful. Yeah,
no
and
excuses,
it looked like she
really
was
no excuses at all. Just didn't no run.
Yeah. Well, Irad was riding, right? I mean, he and it wasn't like he gave up. It wasn't like he kept trying for a long time, right? So
I really don't know what to do with this horse, Davy, because Chad has been so good with his. I mean, he had Sister Charlie. I mean, I could go on and on on how good his fillies and mares have been. So I think this is his best, filly going this distance. At least you'd have to think that. The problem, Davy and Kyle, is that the older filly and mares in the United States this year going long on turf are just not that good because Charlotte Appleby has sent over two horses, as I'm sure you know, Davy, Alfica and Summer Romance, who have finished 1-2 in the last two big turf races over here for older fillies and mares. So, Kyle, you do not have Lamista either on your ticket. I'm using Lamista, by the way, gentlemen, as a B. I am not going to let Chad Brown beat me in this race. I realize she has some form to find, Kyle, but, Chad Brown at 9-2, where I'm not 100% positive she's that much worse than the other two. Do you give her any chance at all?
No, I do, 100%, and I actually believe I did put her in fourth. So I definitely agree with the B. Like I said, like you exactly said, she has some form to find, and coming off the Diana, she might be able to, have a bounce back race to that 1-2 back from Belmont. But for me, I just could not put her above Santa Barbara. And like I said, I wanted to throw a price in there, like you said, at the 5 Naval Laughter. I was obviously there that day, and I was actually Chris Davis's escort that day.
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
He was obscenely surprised that his horse ran that well on the grass. So and then to throw him, obviously it's the prep race, but to throw him in, I'm assuming he's going to have a lot more confidence coming into this one.
And that's the 5. So just let people know that little inside intel from Kyle there, who actually talked to the trainer. That's great. And look, she's listen. Maybe I'm underestimating Naval Laughter. I mean, she's only got 4 lifetime starts. I just think this is an awfully difficult spot to throw her into. Let's go ahead, gentlemen, on to the leg 3, as we have some wonderful people commenting. We have Jay. Looks like everyone is planning on singling domestic spending. We're going to get into the Arlington Million here, or excuse me, it's actually the Mr. D Stakes in just a minute. But before we do that, we need to talk about leg 3. This is the Bruce D, and I'm going to go ahead and first, gentlemen. This used to be called the Secretariat, and as Davey knows, some very high-class 3-year-olds have been sent over in this race over to Arlington in the past. That is not the case this year. Again, I think probably because of the lower purse, but it is a grade 1 still. They're going 1 mile on the turf, 300,000. This is for restricted 3-year-olds. I thought this was a very difficult race, as reflected by our picks on the screen. My top choice in this race, first of all, there are a lot of horses this could be an allowance race. I don't blame the racing secretary or Arlington in general. When you're offering up a lower purse You're just not going to get the highest quality horses you've had in the past. So this is basically non-winners of one other than kind of race in general, although there are talented horses. There is speed in this race, and I'm very interested in the 4, Ginsburn, who I see Kyle has third for a underrated trainer in George Arnold and Leperoux, 5-1 morning line. I'm not going to show the replay of her maiden breaker, but she was outstanding at Ellis Park last time. Waited in behind horses, tipped out, and finished in 22 and 3. Davy was the final sectional, 22 and 3 in the final quarter for Ginsburn. Really motored home. This is a big ask coming back in 3 weeks. But I don't think Arnold would send this horse here if she wasn't ready. There's other speed in the race, and this is a wide open field. I'm going with Ginsburg on top as my top choice, and I'll just mention my other 2 quickly. Point Me By for Eddie Keneally and Saez is my second choice. He's faced older company, actually. So this is his first race against straight 3-year-olds. Has run very well, is another closer for Saez. See no reason why he cannot win, but he does appear to be a little bit one-paced for me, as opposed to the 4, who I think can quicken up a little more than the 6. At least that's what I see by the visual. And another horse that I want to mention that neither one of these gentlemen have in their money is the 9, Like a Salt Shaker, for local training whiz Larry Ravelli. This horse has only 1 start on the turf, and it was at Belmont last year in the Awad Stakes, finishing second to a nice horse in Step Dancer. Has E.T. Baird, a local rider that Kyle knows very well, that Davey may or may not know, but E.T. Baird is an excellent veteran rider who rides in Chicago. I have a feeling this horse is ready for a big effort in this race, and he is 12-1 morning line.
Right.
Davey, it's a wide open race. You're going to go with the rail horse, a very interesting horse for Nacho Correas, who has not been on the turf in 8 lifetime starts, but looks to have a lot of early speed. The ride of a lifetime, Davey.
Yeah, I like the dirt to turf angle, and I also, I raised this point with you earlier. When the nominations were first came out, the Ride of a Lifetime, Tango, Ginsburg, and Point by Me were not originally nominated.
Okay,
and
that's important.
I was wondering
1, 2, 4, and 6, everyone. So the 1, 2, 4, and 6 were not part of the early nominations. And I'm sorry, I need to interject. Nicole Newlitz brought this up. I believe the early nomination dollar amount, maybe you have it also in front of you, Davey. I think it was $500. And the late nomination was $6,000. So that's
Correct.
A significant difference between
Yeah.
the early and late. So as I'll just let you expound on that. That could be very telling.
Yeah, it is, because if once certain connections realize that they're not going to run up against Jessica Harrington, Aidan O'Brien, any of the big British trainers, Stout, etc., maybe they're willing to part with $6,000 and have a go, And so I'd really like to know what people paid as a supplementary entry, and that would help me handicap the race better, because I'd have a sense of what they're willing to risk. And,
absolutely, it's a good point. And of course, the Sire Candy ride is good on the turf. Davey, you're going to be glad to hear this from my inside intel. The Ride of a Lifetime has been looking fantastic on the track this week. Also, just to let you know. So there is other speed, though, in this race. That's a little bit of a concern for me, because I'm not sure this horse can pass horses going this distance, but we'll see. Dave, you've got the 6, also Point by Me in second, and you have the 2, Tango, who, by the way, got a dream trip last time. That's why I'm against Tango. But Jack Sisterson is a guy that I'm sure, could absolutely win this race for Calumet Farm ownership. Dave, you want to talk about the 2 at all?
Yeah, well, the 2. I mean, I almost dropped it out of the top 3, to be honest. I mean, I wasn't impressed by the Arlington race, the preliminary race, and I think I slotted it in there because of Sisterton, and I have a jockey issue with Leperoux, and maybe I put I ignored Ginsburg Burn because of that. and
Yeah.
rethinking it. Listen, I've only had about a few hours to study these cards,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I,
We understand.
I, and I
You're
haven't.
doing a great job. We appreciate the intel. We understand.
I haven't really percolated on it. I think I will do that tomorrow, and maybe that
No
would
problem.
change, you know.
No problem. Well, hopefully we can help you as well with some ideas for tomorrow for you. For you, it's gonna be tomorrow. Of course, for us, it's Saturday,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
it's not quite Saturday yet here in the States. Kyle, very
yeah.
quickly, can you want to talk about your top 2 or 3 here?
Yeah, so Point Me By, I mean, out of Point of Entry, who we all know was a great turf runner in his own right, but his progeny haven't had that same success. Obviously, he's had some, but the 2 buyer numbers are what really caught my eye. For his first 2 races out were an 82 and an 86, and that maiden special weight, granted at 5.5 furlongs on the grass. He still closed, like you said. He might be a one-way horse, but I'm willing to take that chance with Louis Saez back aboard for not back aboard, but aboard for Eddie Keneally. I'm willing to, and then he throws him in a Saratoga race at 103,000 non-winners of one or other, and he only loses by 1.5. So I'm willing to take the shot. Like you said, with a decent amount of speed and pace in this race, I'm willing to take the shot with the mid runner to close runner. Point Me By.
Sure, and I don't know if people saw that. I threw it. Siggy Mendoza, thanks you for joining the show. He's an excellent viewer who knows pedigree. Just mentioned that the ride of a lifetime was favored in the Iroquois last year at under even money, Davy. So this one has been very well meant from the start,
Yeah.
especially on
Yeah.
dirt. Kyle, you have the 8, King of Miami. Let's quickly talk about this horse before we move on. This is a horse that neither one of us have talked about. A horse I actually saw in the flesh, in person, at Canterbury when I was up there visiting Canterbury Park, who actually upset that field over a very talented Brad Cox horse, TD Dance. You like King of Miami for Ravelli and Loveberry in second.
Correct. And like I said, like you said earlier with Tango, 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 absolute dream trip in that race. And King of Miami also came out of that race. He tried to chase up in between horses at about the half mile, just before the half mile pole, and he just had nothing left at the end. But I think, like I said, if he can kind of sit off the pace in this race, which knowing Ravelli, I don't think he will. I think he'll try and actually go for the lead in this race to see if he can try and clear, because after last race, I know Ravelli gets kind of pissed off when he the horse doesn't run like he thinks it can run. So I think if he tries to send, I think he might be able to at least place for the minors.
Okay, so King of Miami, interesting horse for Kyle Roscoe. Gentlemen and ladies that might be also watching our show tonight, let's move on to the feature race. It's the 38th, technically the first running of the Mr. D Stakes, but it is the 38th running basically of the Arlington Million, called the Mr. D Stakes this year. They're going in the traditional mile and a quarter on the turf. This year's purse has been unfortunately dropped to 600,000. But even though the purse has been dropped, gentlemen, the quality in this race, although it might not be a big field, has not been dropped. And there are 2 very, very good horses in this race. By far the best, pun intended, domestic horse in the country in domestic spending, and a horse that I would love to hear more details on from our wonderful guest, Davy Lane. Armory, coming in from Europe for Aidan O'Brien. And you can see the picks on the screen. We've all got 3-9 or 9-3. Davey, I'm going to let you go first. Of course, we're each going with our hometown guys, right? We're going with the Americans, Kyle, and Davey's going to represent the Euros. Completely understandable. Talk about Armory coming in from Europe for this race, Davey Lane.
For me, it's a price. He's currently 4-1 in the UK markets.
Wow.
So
he's 9-2 here. So
yeah.
I thought he'd be low. I thought he'd be actually lower over there, Davey. So
me too. So I've already.
What does that tell you? What does that tell you, sir?
Well, the English bookies, they offer they have competition. They fight each other and so on. So
right.
But I've invested already. It's also getting Lasix for the first time.
Sure.
It's a group 1 animal. It's had races to warm up. It may not have won its most recent race, this, that, and the rest, but I like domestic spending a lot. But domestic. What was it? Liam? Was it Lee? What was it? Not Colonel Liam.
Yes.
The Dead Heat. Was it the Dead
Yes.
Heat?
Yep.
Right. So,
Correct.
I mean, Colonel Liam is a good horse, but it's not like, it's not a major Group 1 beast as far as I could make out. And I know domestic spending had an unlucky trip and so on, but I think Armory's a higher quality horse. I think Chad Brown, for all the talk about him being great, is not having a great year. And I think O'Brien is picking and choosing his targets carefully, and I think this is a winner. And I like the price. So what's not to like about a Galileo? That runs a lot and gets warmed up,
Davey, I've got one question, and we're not going to take the time tonight to watch the replays. I watched the Prince of Wales Stakes replay. I also watched the York Stakes replay. Davey, please correct me if I'm wrong, because you have more experience watching these Euro races than I do. The one, Armory obviously can win this race. The one thing that I don't like about Armory, Davey, is he seems a bit one-paced. Like when they quicken, he doesn't seem to be able to quicken through a hole. He seems just to be more of a grindy type. Am I way off base in saying that, or do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that statement. Yeah.
And do you think that might be a problem in this race, or do you think? I think the only way he wins this race, not the only way. I think he needs to get the jump on domestic spending, because as good as Armory is, Davey, domestic spending has one of the best closing kicks I think we've seen in this country in quite a while, and I'm including bricks and mortar in that. So I think. Do you think Ryan's going to be aggressive and try to sort of get the jump on domestic spending, Davey?
He may try, but you're up against Flavian Pratt there, so it's a chess match in that respect, and it's the two chess masters. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure either is going to get the, outdo the other, so to speak. And I think the better horse is Armory.
Okay.
I think it's the Rolls Royce, and it'll cook up and it'll go, and I'm quite confident.
My wonderful connection, Nicole Newlist, who again was on my show earlier tonight. Armory's been a little bit warm in the mornings. I don't think that should be a surprise nor a concern, Davey. First of all, it's been hot and humid here, and don't the Galileos get a little bit heated up anyway in general?
Yeah, yes, some of them do, and that may be a good sign. It may be a good thing,
Okay. Kyle, I'm gonna let you talk on behalf of the Americans here, you and I. Domestic spending, there's really not too much to say. Flavian Pratt, 6-5 morning line. How and why do you think domestic spending is going to beat the very good Armory on Saturday, Kyle?
I mean, like you said, what is there to say? What more is there to say about this horse? I mean, the thing is that I do agree with what Davey said about the Turf Classic back in May, that he did dead heat with Colonel Liam, even though Colonel Liam is he's a good horse. He's not, the top of the top in this year's, turf division, which actually that might be an angle for the 4 too, as he was second to Colonel Liam 3 back at Fairgrounds, but I digress. So the 3, like you said earlier, reminds me of bricks and mortar. It really does. That closing kick, even though domestic spending does look like he has that edge on bricks and mortar with that late kick too, it just looks like he's going to sit, mid pocket, just split horses at the top of the stretch and explode, just like bricks and mortar did in the 2019 Million. But like you said, if Armory can get the jump on him, Armory might be the better horse.
I'm going to be very clear in this statement for those of you that like to follow my personal handicapping. I'm using domestic spending as an A. I would no way, shape, or form single this horse in a caveman pick 5. I have way too much respect for Aiden O'Brien and Armory to just flat out single domestic spending. This is why I don't like caveman tickets, though, guys, because if you go too deep in this race, you're going too deep with a horse that's going to be, I say 4-5, guys. I think domestic spending is going to be 4-5, and I think it's going to be lower on race day tomorrow for you, Davey. I think Armory's going to be something like 3-1, 5-2 at post time, in my opinion. So if you're spending money in a caveman ticket, ladies and gentlemen, on a 4-5 and a 5-2, you're really not spending your money wisely. If I were you folks out there and you're playing a cheaper ticket, I think you need to take a stand. You either single domestic spending or you single armory. That is why, again, we've talked about ticket construction on this show quite a bit. I like an ABC because domestic spending is my A. I still like armory, but armory I like a little bit less as a B. And the reason I'll just close with this, guys, in this race, I like the upside. I'll direct this more to Davey, not to try to convince you in any way, shape, or form. But I think domestic spending still has upside, Davey. I think domestic spending is getting better. He's by Kingman out of a Street Cry mare. I think he's getting better and better as the races go along. I don't think we've even seen the best of domestic spending. So that's just sort of my gut feeling there. I think we know what Armory is, a very good horse, but I'm not sure the upside is there.
When you last saw Armory run, which was like about a month and a half ago, you have to note that he was carrying in that race 9 pounds more than he'll be carrying at Arlington. So when you're talking about this pick,
no, absolutely right. But he carried 126 against Love and 129 against Magical. Listen, I have full respect. Like I said, I would not put a win bet on domestic spending. I would not single domestic spending. But when for an ABC ticket, I think you have to make it some kind of decision. And so I'm going to go with as an A, domestic spending. I realize there's other horses in this race. I don't have the time or desire, frankly, to talk about others because really this looks like a 2-horse field to me. Last thing I will say though is domestic spending just beat Tribhuvan last time, and Tribhuvan came back and won the United Nations very well. So domestic spending beat a very nice horse last time. Just want to mention that because Davey mentioned that he just dead heated with Colonel Liam. So I think the form lines, Davey, are very good on domestic spending. But if you were to say who's faced better horses overall in their career, yes, Armory has faced better horses, no question, 100%. Overall in their careers. Gentlemen, let's go on to the last race of the day. And a very important race, and a race I think you might need to spread depending on your opinions. By the way, this is very important. You guys don't know this. And I did not know this till about an hour and a half ago. Another mystery who is the 6 horse in the big race in the Mr. D is cross-entered into the last race of the day, the Black Tie Affair. As you can see, another mystery is 8-5. According to my sources, another mystery is going into this last race, and it's not going into the Mr. D. So apparently another mystery is going to be running in this last race, which I think is actually the right play to make. Let me go ahead and switch our picks so people can see. And as you can all see, we're not being very clever in this race, which is really interesting because there are many horses in this race that are fairly similar. But Kyle, I'll let you have go first. Another mystery, and now that you've learned is going in this race, sure looks like he stands out for a fantastic local guy who, frankly, I hope wins this race, Chris Block.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, local guy. Flavian Pratt gets aboard. Back-to-back 90 buyers since Block took the training up on this horse. And like you said, that his last race was the Arlington Stakes, the Grade 3 on Million Preview Day again. And that actually emerged to be a 2-horse race, which both of them will go in the Mr. D Stakes, which that is Busy Channel, which is the 8, which we had in 3rd.
Correct.
And 2 Emmys, which was the 4. So, like I said, those 2 kind of emerged to be a 2-horse race, and another mystery ended up being the best of the rest. So now that you say he goes against this company instead of the Mr. D's, I think this is a lot better spot for him, and I think he can easily get the job done in this field.
Yeah, I mean, Davey, I'm sure you agree. I don't know what numbers you're using in terms of speed figures, Davey, but by our buyer numbers here on the form, he just towers over this field.
Yeah. I saw all of that, and I agree, and that's why I put him in there. But there's also other cross entries. The 4th
there's
race.
2 more. Yeah.
Yes, there are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they read the cliff notes in DeFever, and that has sires on it. So it'd be very hard to handicap this in a pick 5 when you don't know if half the field is going to be in the race or not.
Sure, and read the Cliff Notes has speed for Michelle Boyce, who's a very good trainer, as well as I'm sorry, what was the other horse you mentioned?
11.
Oh, okay,
Uh,
DeFever, who. So
Beaver.
again, doesn't I guess the question, Davey, is another mystery. Does he really need a setup, to win? In other words, does he need the pace to develop, or is he just that much better than these horses anyway?
Yeah.
Right, that's the main question, Davey.
Yeah, I think he is, but it'd be interesting to see if he gets a race with 5 horses or 11 horses. I mean,
Of
I
course,
just yeah.
hard to
So
say.
it's hard to
Uh,
say. It's
Do,
got the
do you,
best jockey. I should say if another mystery had 3 legs with Flavian Pratt on board, he probably might win.
Well, so
um,
I think all this horse needs is a decent trip probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
We all have the two. Davey, you want to finish off your specific handicapping tonight with the two Fly Nightly? You have this
Um.
horse in second for
Yeah.
Brittany Vandenberg, who's a very good local trainer here, 32%
Yeah. That.
right now
Yeah.
overall.
I went through the figures of the trainers and what have you, and came up with that.
Yeah.
And where's my?
That's all right. We can
I
talk
know.
for a little bit. This horse was while you're looking up your notes there, Davey. This
Yeah.
horse was pretty cheap early in the year at Tampa, 16,000 condition. They claimed this horse for 20, and what a claim! Claim
Yeah.
for 20, has won
Yeah.
2 out of 3, and now is in a stake race. Go ahead, Davey, if you wanted to finish off your comment.
Yeah. It's by the factor, right? Fly Nightly
Yes, that is
and
correct. Yeah,
right.
but
And
the dam side has European breeding though.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Endure. Yeah. So
yeah,
I mean, y- yeah, it's almost irrelevant though. I mean, the winner looks nailed on, and
yeah.
yeah. So
Sure.
you're filling it in, really, aren't you?
Yeah, Kyle, I don't think we need to talk too much. Is there anything else you want to add in this race? Again, it's hard to know who's going to run
Right.
here with all the cross entries, but
Right. And I will say, though, real quick, I will be very surprised if the 7 runs in this race. Just the amount of dominance that he showed at, the 6-7 furlong on the poly, not only
Okay.
this year, but just overall. I would be
Yeah.
very surprised if Michelle puts him in this spot other than the 4th race, which is what else he's entered in.
right. There are a bunch of Illinois bred stakes on this race on this day for people that are not aware. That's what Kyle is referring
Yeah.
to. But sure looks like the 4. Let's go ahead and as we finish our conversation tonight, and thank you very much for watching. We get a lot of people watching tonight. I know a lot of you probably haven't that are watching. Maybe haven't looked deep into the PPs because usually we have a lot more questions. But I think a lot of people are just listening very intently. As I
Yeah.
bring up I'm going to take the PPs off here, gentlemen, and bring up some comments. We have a question from Jay. He thinks that 11 will be on the lead. And throwing this horse in as a C. Listen, if it's run like the races in New York, I've seen crazier things with a horse going wire to wire. And by the way, I apologize. I realized my screen got a little blurry there. I apologize for that. Let's, as we end the show, and Davey especially, thanks for staying on this late. We're gonna let you get some sleep here in just a second.
Yeah. I know.
There's my caveman ticket, gentlemen, which you've not seen yet. So again, I have no singles here. I have no singles. I obviously you could single many horses. You could single Domestic Spending. You could single Armory. You could single Another Mystery. You could single Mean Mary, or you could single Santa Barbara. So here's my final question. Kyle, I'll let you go first. I just mentioned 5 horses. Of those 5, if you had to single on a cheaper ticket, who's your most likely winner of those 5?
For me, between the two, the 2 match races basically in this card, I would think Another Mystery would be 100% the horse to single in that last race. He just looks like he towers over the field in that last one. Because what we were talking about is in both those races, either Mean Mary, Santa Barbara. Mean Mary gets loose, she wins. Santa Barbara gets the trip she wants, she wins. And same thing with Mr. D Stakes. So I think the single is Another Mystery.
Davey,
Yeah.
how do you feel about that from a horizontal perspective?
Yeah. That might make it not worth winning, really. I mean, if a couple of the chokes come in earlier on, and this
Right.
one's another choke, how much is it going to pay? I'm not sure. I also think, mate, when we first talked about this, there was a potential for a lot more Euros talking. There isn't that many, so it's maybe we book another slot down the year in autumn where I can where we can throw it together. But yeah, so I would agree with Kyle on that. And then maybe you can just go too deep on the Beverly D and the Arlington Million. So therefore, you're not really losing much, are you? Yeah,
well,
you can take a wide.
I think you can spread in race 1 and race 3. I think the first race and the third leg, with the Pucker Up and the Bruce D, I think that's where you're going to get your price. So, we'd love to have bigger prices maybe in some of these races, but you know what? So, Davey, let's hit it more than once. Let's try to hit it 3 or 4 times, and you go spread, light, spread, light. And you cash. Armory's 9-2 morning line. If Armory wins, Davey, then perhaps that pick 5 will pay more than people think if you beat domestic spending. And if Fly Nightly can upset another mystery in the last leg, I think there's ways that this ticket can pay. People are just going to have to find the correct way to do it. Any closing comments, Davey? I'll let you go first. Any just final thoughts about the Million, what it's meant to people over in Europe, and any thoughts the rest of the year quickly in Europe specifically?
Yeah,
by the way, big race on Sunday at Deauville, correct?
Of course, yeah. We have the poet,
and the pier.
Right? Exactly. So the poet and the pier. So it's going to be.
I follow your racing. That's right.
It's going to be it's very different. The French racing is very well. It's all mixed up. But I'm gonna miss it. I'm just hoping that perhaps the Illinois legislature comes up with something, and that maybe one of these bids can come through, and that there's some unique way of holding it together. I mean, if there's going to be an ice hockey rink at Belmont Park in the future, why can't the Chicago Bears have a horse race track next to it? Or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way you talk. We both agree. It's Davey, I gotta tell you, it's looking very bleak. Very bleak. Excuse me. I don't see it happening. Kyle, any final thoughts on the day on Saturday? Are you going to be there, by the way, on Saturday?
Of course I will.
I will be. By the way, for those people that are in the Chicago area, and for Kyle, I will be up in the Gold Room. Those people who've been to Arlington are going to be there. I will be mainly in the Gold Room, and I'll also be in the paddock quite a bit. And please make sure, as I mentioned already at the beginning of the show, I know, Davey, you missed this portion. Please follow me on Twitter, because, Davey, I'm going to be sending out a lot of videos and a lot of pictures through Twitter, through my Twitter account on Saturday. Of course, I will be there. I'll send out pictures from the paddock and some videos of horses coming down the stretch and whatnot. So please follow me on Twitter as well. Davy Lane, Kyle Roscoe, thank you very much for being on the show. Davey, we're going to be looking for you. I'm going to ask you to come one more time for the Breeders' Cup. We'll talk about that, because there'll be Euros coming here for the Breeders' Cup. So we'd love to have you one more time in November for the Breeders' Cup. Davey, I'm going to let you go. Kyle, I'm going to let you go. Gentlemen, thanks a lot. Good luck on Saturday, guys. Take care.
Nice to meet you, Kyle.
Nice to meet you as well.
Take care, guys. All right. Again, I apologize greatly here for the camera. It's a little messed up. So I'll just get in. I won't get in too tight. I don't want to scare anyone. I want to thank everyone for watching the show tonight. It's been fantastic. Again, please follow me on Twitter on Saturday. I'll be sending out many great pictures and videos. This has been Howard Kravitz, episode 75 from a foggy Chicago. Good luck. I hope everyone's going to be putting in some great dollars into the very last Arlington Million on Saturday. Have a great night. Take care. Bye-bye.